Today's rebuild might just be one of my most challenging yet, and it's all my fault. You see, normally I go out and sign some of the world's best wonder kids, I develop them, and in turn they help take my team to glory. But today, I'm not going to be allowed to do that, because as fun as wonder kids are, often it's the older players that get overlooked. In fact, the other day, I was watching Thiago Silva in the Club World Cup, and that man has still got it, and it made me think, what if I did a rebuild with only old players? So I thought today, why not set that as my limit? I can only sign players over the age of 30 years old. But then it became the question of which club do we choose for this challenge? Well, this year in the Premier League, the oldest team on average was West Ham United, so I feel like that's going to be the place for us to go. They're a team steeped in history with great facilities and had a bit of a struggle this year under Graham Potter in real life, so now I'm going to step in, and with 5 years as manager, I'm going to try and deliver hopefully Premier League and Champions League glory, all whilst only signing players over the age of 30. Now, West Ham do have talented players in their squad like Jarrod Bowen, Paqueta, Kudus, amongst many others, but of course if we lose any of them, we're only going to be able to replace them with older players, and over time these guys are going to get old too, and it's going to mean that as we go on in the years, instead of our team getting better, as you normally get with wonder kids, our team is going to get worse. Because just like in real life, in Football Manager, the older a player gets, the worse their physical attributes become. So someone like Christian Eriksen at this point, a potential transfer target, being over the age of 30, he's starting to lose his legs, and we're going to be seeing that with pretty much everyone that we buy. So unless we're picking out the world's best or getting our recruitment really top drawer, this is going to be a very challenging rebuild. Now, at the start of this save, West Ham are predicted to finish in 9th place. So it's not like we're starting with the worst team in the world, 50-1 odds of winning the title. They're obviously not going to win it anytime soon, but it means in our 5 years here, if we can get the right kind of business in, we could hopefully make them a Champions League regular. And we've got a pretty nice budget to be able to try and make that work, with £29 million to spend in our first season and a decent chunk of the wage budget. But of course, where we can spend that money is limited. In fact, before our scouts have actually gone out and looked anywhere, they've only actually returned 9 players they deemed good enough for the first team over the age of 30 that we could go out and buy. And to be honest, not many of these guys here are level raisers, so I'm gonna have to make sure our scouting and recruitment is top drawer, but I'll see what I can do in our first transfer window. I'll get the ball rolling, and hopefully we can help this team of older players prove that you don't need youth to win, and experience always matters. And there was no time to take it easy. I had to act quick in the market so we didn't lose out on some of the limited players we were able to buy to other clubs. And I actually think from the business we've done, we've got some good gems here. Let's start with the outgoings, where with the aim of having an older squad, I've started getting rid of a couple of the younger players in the team that we didn't really need, like Andy Irving, the 24-year-old Scotsman, has gone to play for Celta Vigo for a fee of £1 million. And Brazilian defender Luis João has gone to play for Bahia in the Brazilian divisions, leaving for £4.2 million. We've not done too bad there. But then we get to the incomings, and of course, it's not going to be as flashy as picking up Lamine Yamal or Pedri or whoever it might be, but I feel like this business makes sense. Coming in first was a Premier League experienced player in Jeffrey Schlupp. The Ghanaian 31-year-old will count as a homegrown option, having came out of Leicester, has recently spent his years at Crystal Palace, and we've picked him up on a free as an over 30 to help our side. I then spent £7 million on a fullback option that can cover both areas in Adam Murasic, a Montenegrin international coming in from Lazio, where he has been for a number of seasons in Serie A for £7 million. We saw Christian Eriksen earlier was on our scouted list of older players that we could go for, and I thought, you know what, let's bring him in. You'll see why in the system that we're playing in a second that he could be useful. But the 32-year-old is signed from Manchester United, having been let go on a free. Obviously one of the better players of the last decade or so in the Premier League, but his time has passed. But my final signing, and the one I'm most excited about in terms of current ability, is Memphis Depay. Over the age of 30 here, we've picked up the Dutch international. He was a free agent, so I swooped in and picked him up. He's got plenty of experience with some of the best clubs in the world, so to have him in our lineups, I think is going to be very useful, particularly when you see the system we're playing. Because keeping in theme with having an older squad, we've gone for an old school tactic, running with a 4-4-2 with a team full of players over the age of 30. But let's introduce you you to our best 11 as of right now. How many of these will be here in the future, I'm not sure, but we start off with an over 30 in goal in the form of Areola. Aaron Wan-Bissaka is still a few years away from 30 yet, so we're glad to have him at right back, whilst Todibo is one of the youngest in the squad at 24, and Mavropanos at 26 is another one of those players under the age of 30. Emerson hasn't got too long, he's actually only got a few days before he turns 30 years of age, but it's as we go forward that we start to see some more of these older players. Carlos Sola isn't one of those at 27, but Eriksen, Guido Rodriguez and Depay are all over the age of 30, as is Fulkrug, who is alongside Jared Bowen up top. Now, the rule isn't that we have to sell everyone on the age of 30, it just means any new players we sign have to be over that. So if we do lose some of these stars like Bowen, Kudus or Paqueta, we're not going to be able to replace them with better players really, because most of the guys that are older are going to be a lot worse at this stage. But we're ready to go now in our first season. After our first bit of business, we have managed to raise our team's prediction to an 8th place finish. It's still not spectacular, but we'll see how our older players can do in our first year at the club, and then we're going to have to see what happens when they start to decline and we need to get a fresh batch in. And we were hoping in this rebuild we'd be able to prove that experience beats youth, but I'm not necessarily sure they've lived up to that billing. Now, don't get me wrong, we had some great results, like when we went out and beat Chelsea 4-0 at our home stadium, and a 3-0 battering of Newcastle was another highlight, but the age of the team definitely proved a problem, and when we had the busy periods of the season, like in December, we got battered, losing 5-0 to City and not winning a single match in the month. And it was the same against Brentford, where we came off of a cup match, clearly tired and with no energy left in our old men. We eventually lost 5-1 in an embarrassing defeat. So as you can tell, the season was hit and miss, and a lot of the problems I expected with an older team did start to show. But nonetheless, it was a good showing across all competitions, particularly when you compare it to West Ham's season in real life. We got to the quarter-final of every competition we were in, the Carabao, the FA Cup and the Europa League, which we were in because of how Football Manager works still, with this still being a game from a couple years ago. But either way, we finish in 8th place in the league table itself, which is not bad at all, 2 points away from 7th place Newcastle, but 8 points behind Brighton in a European spot. We lost 14 games this season, a lot of which you can see we were getting absolutely battered, but when this tactic worked, it worked really well, and we managed to score a lot of goals too. So maybe it's a tactical issue as well as a player issue. And part of it might be down to the fact that we are playing a gegenpressing system with a team of players who are only getting older, and I think that's going to prove to be a problem as we go, because if you have a look at our best players this year, in that list was Memphis Depay and Fulkrug, who managed to score 30 goals near enough between them, both of which are going to be getting worse as the years go on. Bowen and Kudus did manage to enjoy this old school system, but again, we're now going into a window where all these players that we've been using, the likes of Eriksen, Murisic, Schlupp, Guido Rodriguez even, Mikel Antonio, they're only going to be getting worse as time goes on. In fact, Antonio is now retiring, for example. So if we're going to keep this club ticking forward despite our players' decline, we need to make great use of the budget we've been given, which is a pretty hefty 54 million. So let's get stuck in with some transfers and try and raise this team another level. And our transfers in our second season here have been interesting, to say the very least. I'll let you guys be the judge of what you think of them. But speaking of what you think, if you are enjoying this video, there you go, a little tie in there. Make sure you go ahead and smash the like button for me. It genuinely really helps at this stage of the FM that we're in, basically. There's less people watching the content, of course there is. The game's been out for ages, so the more of you that can hit the like button, the better these videos get spread. Whilst we're on the topic though, make sure you are also subscribed to the channel if you enjoy these kind of videos. We have them weekly, and get involved in the comments for me. Let me know what you think of this, and let me know what challenges you'd like to see next. But with that being said, let's first start with the players that we sold. Well, it was a pretty instant flip for one of our players that we signed last year, the one that didn't work out the most, I would say, in Jeffrey Schlupp, who we've sold to Sheffield United for a fee of 400,000. He came in last year, only started one game, 9 games off the bench, wasn't really worth keeping, so we've moved him on. I've loaned out Maxwell Cornet to Getafe with the idea of potentially selling him. He wasn't with us last year. He was out on loan at Southampton, where he didn't even get a game in the Championship, so he's not going to be good enough for our team in the Prem. But the big sale, and one that might actually hurt us big time, is Edson Alvarez. Our 27-year-old Mexican was a big part of our team last season, played a lot of games, starting 14, coming off a bench in 14, and now we've sold him on for the same fee we bought him for to Newcastle. So we make our money back. He wanted to go when the offer came in, but of course that now means means we've got to replace a 27-year-old with a player over the age of 30 who's probably at this point going to be a bit worse than Edson Alvarez. So you can see the kind of issues we were going to have in the market, and it proved to be a real big challenge. But if you'd like to give this challenge a go yourself, you can get access to the save files from this rebuild over on my Patreon, which is linked in the description. It is genuinely the best way to support me as a creator. It helps pay for the editor for these videos, the thumbnails as well, to try and make the content better for you guys, to give back what you guys are giving to me to try and improve it all round. So thank you for any support. Not only over there do you get the save files, but if you check it out, you might also find some other things you like access to the videos early, ad-free of course as well, so you can watch them before they're up on YouTube, and rebuild polls to help decide what you want to see next here on the channel. So thank you to anyone who checks it out. It really does help me. But let's see the players that we bought in. And I said the business was interesting, so stick with me here. I've bought in Olivier Giroud as a striker option, with Mikel Antonio leaving us, having retired. He's 38, and the France legend is still playing football, having been at LAFC in recent years. In real life, he's obviously still got it. He's just moved to Lille. In game, we've bought him for £1 million, only for him to then announce his retirement a few days later in December. So we've only got him for half a season. Why he couldn't have told me this before he moved, I don't know, but Giroud is in. I then decided to think forward about the goalkeeping position and went out and signed the best 30-year-old goalkeeper willing to join us in the form of Dominik Livakovic. We picked him up from Fenerbahce in Turkey. The former Dinamo Zagreb man has been a great option in FM for years. We found him here age 30 for £21 million. It's a lot of money for a player that of course is going to have no resale value really with the age that we're buying him at, but we get one of the best in his age bracket, and with him being 30, there's still years ahead of him in his career, so hopefully goalkeeper isn't anything that we have to worry about going forward. But my options are of course limited, so the final player I signed, and actually the best player our scouts recommended across the board of any player over 30, was Ricardo Horta, who isn't exactly someone that's going to set the world alight, but we bought the Portuguese international in from Braga, where he was very good last year. Obviously the Premier League is a different kettle of fish, but he can play on the left, he can play on the right and through the middle if needed, so we're getting a versatile option who at 30, like many of the others we've spoken about, has still got years left ahead of him before he'll start to decline. Probably 32, 33, we'll start to see him knocked down, so hopefully we're getting him in his prime years and he'll be a nice addition to the team. So this is what we're left with as our best 11 heading into season 2, and it is actually pretty stacked in this old school formation. We've got a bunch of old players, but it's not the only old-fashioned thing about the club, because I've also gone out and designed a retro Kappa kit for our West Ham players to play in to keep up with those old-fashioned vibes that we're going for. And if you want to create a kit like this yourself, you can do so for totally free on the fmkitcreator.com website, which I'll leave linked in the description. Over there you can design your kits for your favourite teams and import them straight into FM to help make your game feel fresh. And if you get access to the Plus version of it, you can even use their bulk generator, which with one click of a button, it will auto-generate every single kit for the teams in the league of your choosing. If you are going to use it, do use my link in the description. It helps give them a little bit of tracking to know that you guys are going and checking it out, and obviously that's great for me as well, because it hopefully means we can keep this partnership going. So shout out to them, shout out to any of you guys that check it out, and I'm not just saying it because it's a sponsor, I genuinely think it's amazing. So go on over and take a look. But let's take a look at how our team's expected to do this year. And unsurprisingly, not much has changed, because we didn't exactly set the world alight with our signings. We are still predicted to finish 8th. My worry is, of course, these players that we've got are only going to get worse as time goes on, so maybe we're going to see that go down season upon season. I'm not sure, but for now, there's no European football to contend with. Our older players can focus just on the league, and hopefully that will lead to a much better finish this time round. I'm not necessarily sure whether I'd call season 2 progress, but I guess we've done better than we did last year. Now, part of it might be because we got knocked out of the Carabao Cup at the first available opportunity, and the same for the FA Cup, where we went out to City in the 3rd round. And because of that, we were able to focus on the league, and it led to some big wins in the competition. We managed to put Manchester United away in a 3-0 victory, and that was followed by great results against Newcastle, Middlesbrough, and Spurs. And that end of season run of form meant that we managed to finish in a European spot only just in 7th place, which is less wins than we had last time, might even be less points, but it's a higher position, and it has meant European football will be coming West Ham's way in the Conference League, which actually might be a better competition for us than any of the others right now. I don't think we're ready for anything else, but we managed to just edge out Manchester United and Tottenham to a place in that top 7, where we have not just one London club in West Ham, but Fulham, Brentford, Arsenal and Chelsea, 5 of the top 7 from London, which just shows the power going on in that area at the minute. But we are miles off a title, of course we are right now, and it still wasn't the world's best season, but we're certainly going to take it. Fulkrug was once again one of our best performers, but as you can tell, this guy is starting to get a little bit worse, age 33. He scored 18 goals this year, whilst James Ward-Prowse coming back into the team was a very nice new addition. The over 30-year-old midfielder managed to be one of our best performers. Horton managed to come in and score 7 in his first year, assisting 8 in the league as well, so not bad returns from him, whilst Bowen, Livakovic, Todibo and Depay probably sum up the rest of the good performers. Everyone else was average, if not worse. But at this stage in Season 2, this is where I start to think maybe it's time we change the tactic. Because attacking wise, this 4-4-2 isn't exactly netting us a ton of goals. 65 is decent, but it's not the world's best. And when it comes to the fewest conceded, that's where I'm really disappointed, because we've conceded some of the most goals in the league. And it's that defence that is really hurting us, I think, across the course of the season. So we might have to look into that. You can see when we lose, we get absolutely battered. And it tends to be when we're away, when we're less dominant, that this tactic really doesn't work well. So maybe it's time we think of something new. But either way, at this stage with West Ham, we spent 2 years at the club, we've moved on a few of their players and bought in a load of old heads, and we're not really seeing any changes. They're managing to do okay for now, but their bodies are going to deteriorate and we're going to need new players into the team. So it's a good job we've got a nice budget to go out and sign some new players, but the recruitment has got to be bang on. And you know what? After the first 2 transfer windows, I was kind of looking at this rebuild thinking, these don't look very good when I make the transfers. It's not really exciting me the way it would when I sign Wonder Kids, but the business we were able to pull off in this transfer window makes me forget all of that, because I think we've signed some absolute superstars. We have moved on a few too though, as Memphis Depay departs the club, now age 32. You can tell he's another one that is declining. He goes to Nice for the season on a £1 million loan deal, being not really considered good enough anymore on that left flank where he's been playing, only a 2-star rating. Thomas Souček has also moved on to Olympiacos, a good player in the age range that we want, but he only played 5 times for his last year, all off the bench, so clearly not favoured anymore. Our goalkeeper, Areola, has moved on as well, age 33. The backup has gone to FC Cologne out in Germany for 2.1 million quid. But our 2 biggest sales were some of our younger players in the squad, which sounds crazy to say with a 28-year-old in Mavropanos, who has moved to Al Shabab for a fee of £11 million. He decided he didn't want to stay at the club anymore, so we thought, you know what, let's move him before we lose him on a free. And it was the same story for Guido Rodriguez, who has moved to AC Milan, age 32, probably one of the best in our squad in terms of still having that ability past the age of 30, an Argentinian international who's been great for us, but now moves to Serie A for 29 million quid. It was a nice sum to get with only 1 year left in his contract. But now you'll see why I was so happy with this window. Strap in for superstar after superstar. Now, they might be a few years past it, some of these players, but they are still great, like Emerick Laporte, who comes in as a new centre-back option, having signed on a free from Al Nassr, where he's been great in Saudi. The former Man City man joins us age 32, and he's still valued at 30 million. Leandro Trossard, another one that we had our eyes on, who we've picked up at the end of his contract at Arsenal, who let him go, having not really used him in recent years. We signed him on a free too. The free deals kept coming with the signing of Portuguese midfielder Otavio. He's an international for his nation, but at 31 was leaving Al Nassr as a free agent, so another one from then that we've picked up. And we didn't stop there. We went over to Al Nassr for another one of their players whose contract was expiring in the form of Marcelo Brozovic. Clearly way past his best, but still a nice player to have in the team. A leader, a world-class midfielder who technically and mentally is supremely good, but it's the physicals where he started to be let down. Although saying that, he's still been great at Al Nassr. We've also bought in Giovanni Simeone as an extra striking option, with Giroud leaving us, of course, after only half a year to retire. He comes in, having scored a few goals from Napoli. As a free agent, you can't really complain. And the final free transfer I bought in was Lucas Digne. He was let go by Aston Villa, and age 33. There is still a player in there, even if he's nowhere near the levels he used to be. He'll give us some cover at left back behind Emerson, and is a nice addition for now. But with Areola leaving, I needed a new backup goalkeeper, and over the age of 30, I was also looking for a homegrown one. There wasn't many options, but Jack Butland was out there at Rangers, and I went and bought him for 7 million quid. He'll be our backup goalkeeper and gives us some nice depth in the area for a few years. But the 2 biggest signings, yes, I'm still not done, were this guy, Hidemasa Morita, a 31-year-old Japanese international signing from Sporting Club de Portugal, who we spent £21 million on, and actually, I think that's great value for money for what we're getting. But the biggest signing of all was Ollie Watkins, who is now 30 years of age, not long been 30 to be honest, only about half a year, so we swooped in and bought him for £32 million. He has been scoring for Villa, not at the rate that he quite does in real life, mind you, but for about 30 million quid, I think he's good value for money and will come in as our best striker so far. And I've decided for now that I am going to stick with the 4-4-2 shape for one more season at the very least. Now that we've got some higher quality players in, I'd like to see how it performs when we've got the likes of Laporte in there now, Marita, Ollie Watkins as well. You know, this is a really good squad, and the bench as well is also stacked with talent. If you have a look at the team overall and we filter by age, yes, there's a couple of younger players that are academy guys that aren't really going to play, but outside of that, you are looking at most of the team being 28 or older. In fact, Kilman, Bowen, Cornet will all be 30 plus soon. Everyone else, so the majority of the squad, is over 30, and most of them are our best players too. So we are sticking to the rule. We've got a very old squad here who are only going to deteriorate as the years go on, but with the transfers that we've made, the board still want a top half finish, and we're predicted to finish in 8th, still with that exact same odds of winning the title. When it comes to the competitions, it's actually going to be the Europa League for us this year. I don't know what happened, but we got boosted up to that instead of the Conference League, so that's a nice little win, I guess. But of course, I want to win something in this rebuild, and at this stage currently, we're not making any progress, so I'm hoping Season 3 is going to book that trend. And I'm starting to get a little bit frustrated now at this point in the rebuild, because we are 3 seasons in and I still feel like we haven't made any real progress from where we started, which granted does make sense because every year our team gets worse and we replace them with players that are of a similar calibre and are only going to get worse too. But I really got my hopes up this year in the Europa League, because having knocked out Real Betis in the knockout playoff round, we found ourselves in a round of 16 tie against Fulham, and we actually managed to get a win, beating them 4-3 and making it to the quarterfinals. But as I've said before, these older players struggle when they're playing multiple games a week, and when we came up against FC Copenhagen in the quarters, I assumed we were going through until a kick in the teeth from Rooney Bargi, the wonder kid. So not only were we 1-0 down, we had conceded to one of the best young players in the game, who in most cases I would have gone and bought, but not this time with my over 30 limit, and they made it to, and Copenhagen knocked us out to make it to the semi-final, which I think is a disaster. I think we should be beating them, and that should have been us in the Europa League semi, but it wasn't to be, and nor was it in the domestic competitions. But at least on the league front, we improved by 2 points this year. It's nothing special, but we qualify for the Europa League. 19 wins out of 38 is good, but again, we're getting battered in a lot of these games. I mean, most of them being away from home too. 5 draws, we're just conceding far too many. I'm going to have to change a tactic. The goal difference isn't good enough. 62 points is nice, but we're nowhere near the title. In fact, Arsenal, a London rival, running away 30 points ahead of us with that trophy. I don't see it happening in this rebuild at all. In fact, I'd be surprised if we won anything. This has really proved to me how difficult it is to play this way in FM. But again, if we have a look at the team details, we scored some of the most goals in the league. Only 11 less than Arsenal. We are scoring for fun, but on the conceded chart, we're in 16th place. We're conceding as much as the relegated teams are. It is just not good enough for what we want to achieve. And a big reason for that was because I tried to experiment with the tactic a little bit. In fact, in the later half of the season, this is the kind of system we were playing. I decided to push those wingers a little bit higher, but it just led to us conceding more. And I'm still in a bit of a rut now in terms of what to do. Does the 4-2-4 work? No. Did the 4-4-2 work? Also no. Maybe with it being an older squad, we need to work on something that's a little more conservative, maybe doesn't require as much energy as this would. Maybe something simple like a 4-3-3 with some cover might be a little bit better. It might have been what I should have gone for. I still want to play gegenpress. It's the football that I like. But yeah, not really good enough. Although saying that, we are scoring for fun. 20 from Bowen, 21 from Fulkrug, 21 from Watkins. These older players are still tearing it up, and Bowen now is in that category. He is 30. He's one of those that's actually made it to that point. There was 9 from Paqueta, 6 from Simeone, 7 as well from Horta, 9 from Kudus. Goals all over the place, scoring a ton, but I would much prefer results than just players scoring goals and then conceding a load at the back. So we now go into season 4, still not won anything, with £59 million to spend. I'm going to try change the system up, hopefully bring in the right players. I'm hoping that will mean we'll have a better season and not just get, 63 points next year and then 64 in the last. I want to see us push for a trophy, but we need the right players to do it. And after our busy window in Season 3, in Season 4, I've calmed it down a little bit, but focused on quality, and I think the transfers we've got are pretty good. Before I show you them though, this is the last time I will ask you, if you could smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, show some support to the video, get involved in the comments, it really would mean a lot. Remember, the Patreon and the link to the FM Kit Creator website is in the description. All of those things do help me massively, so a big thank you to you guys for still watching and still supporting after what has been nearly 2 years of FM24 at this stage. I cannot wait for a new game, but let's take a look at some of the players that we've bought, because I bet you can't wait to see them either. Firstly though, it's time to say goodbye to a player that has become a West Ham legend across the course of this save so far in Nicholas Füllkrug. The German has moved on, age 34, to Stuttgart for 1.8 million because of the new system we're playing. He is not going to cut it anymore as his physicals start to deteriorate. Otavio is another one that moves on after only 1 year at the club. We have sold him back to Saudi Arabia for 10 million. Not bad business at all for a player that only has started 2 games and came off the bench 26 times. And then there's Laporte, who I would have kept for a number of years, but he's moved to Al Ittihad. So he's had Al Nassr, now he's at Al Ittihad. For 15 million pounds we made from him. He wanted to leave as soon as they came in, and you can understand, with 400k, he only had 1 year left on his deal, and it was one of those where we lose him on a free, or we make a load of money from him and reinvest it. So that's exactly what I did. The money for him went on a new centre-back, one that's only 30, so he's got a few more years left in the tank than Laporte did. It's Luis Felipe, an Italian 30-year-old who we signed from Marseille. The same fee they paid for him when they got him from Betis. He's been great in Ligue 1 for Marseille over the course of this save, and now we're picking up the 6'2" right-footed defender who loves a tackle to help us out in this West Ham team. Speaking of Italian players though, there's another one coming in the form of Gaetano Castrovilli, who has just hit 30, and the Italian international will be a nice bolster to our midfield. Having only played in Italy so far, he joins us, having been let go by Lazio as a new free agent. And then we bring an Englishman back to London, but not to his former club. Chelsea's Ruben Loftus-Cheek has signed for West Ham. He's gone out and played for AC Milan and done very well in his time there. In fact, he's been a regular starter for one of the best sides in his nation, and now, having been let go, he joins us as a free agent, an absolute monster midfielder who I still think, as a Chelsea fan, had everything in terms of talent to be one of the world's best in that position if it wasn't for his injuries, which you can see he is still injury prone. We'll try and work on that. Ruben is here as our new number 7 and our new midfield creator, but he was also backed up by 2 incomings that I think revolutionised their positions for our team. Firstly, Kieran Tierney has hit 30 years of age, so I activated his release clause from Celtic and bought him in for 17 million as our new starting left back. And I've also gone and improved our right back position too with the signing of Denzel Dumfries. The 31-year-old Dutch international is available from Bayer Leverkusen of all places. He joined them, I guess, to replace Frimpong in their defence, and since then has become a mainstay in the Bundesliga. We paid 30 mil for him, and I think he is going to bolster that position and probably better Wan-Bissaka in the system that we're looking to use. Because, as I suggested before, I wanted to move to a 4-3-3 shape to try and conserve some of these players' energy and to make it less, back and forth basketball, which is no good for any team, never mind a team of old men. I say old men in football terms for anyone watching, don't want to offend, but we do have a very good team now in my opinion. Aguerd, Todibo, Dumfries and Tierney is a very good defence. In fact, I think Todibo is the only one of those that is currently under the age of 30. Aguerd is now over it, so he's one of the youngest men in this squad. Morita, Ward-Prowse and Loftus-Cheek, all over the age of 30. Kudus, Bowen and Watkins are all getting there as well. In fact, if we look at the ages of the squad now, you can see there is only a few players left, actually first teamers. It's just Somerville, Kudus and Todibo, as well as Wan-Bissaka and Paqueta, who are currently under 30. Everyone else is of an age, let's put it that way. Despite that though, we still maintain our position as an 8th place potential finisher. Now that's not too unusual for West Ham. Actually, it'd be a pretty good finish for them in real life, but at this stage in a normal rebuild, I've got them to be in a Champions League final or anything like that. But without being able to sign most of the players I'd want to get, it's really added another challenge to this team, and I'm hoping by the end of this rebuild we can at least get close to a trophy. Now last season, you might remember in the Europa League, we made it to a quarter-final and our old squad came unstuck against Copenhagen. But this time around, we made it to the same stage and we weren't ready to repeat the results of the past. Our opponents on the day were Fiorentina, and I think it proved the difference between last season and this season, as the 2 goal scorers that helped us get the win were Ruben Loftus-Cheek and our other new signing in Denzel Dumfries. They helped carry us into a Europa League semi-final where we came up against Celtic, and I was expecting to win this quite comfortably, but they went 1-0 up early on. We did manage to equalise just before half-time to make it 1-1, but right at the death in the 88th minute, Celtic went through at their stadium and managed to get a 2-1 win. So come the second leg we were trailing, and then at our stadium they went 1-0 up to go 3-1. But being so close to a Europa League final, we had to go for it, and we got lucky from a Celtic defence mistake that made Bowen score to make it 3-2. And as we piled on the pressure, it was clearly getting to Celtic, and with the home fans behind us, Bowen made it 3-3. But Celtic were proving to be a difficult opponent and managed to get another goal to go in the lead. But thankfully, a brilliant Ollie Watkins takedown and finish took us to penalties. And it was there where our goalkeeper was on fire with not just one save, but managing to save 2 from the spot, meaning if Castrovilli scored, we were going to a Europa League final. And he did it. So our group of experienced older men have managed to hang on in there and get to a Europa League final, beating Celtic, beating Fiorentina, and the team awaiting them was none other than Manchester United. And it was a real battle of a game actually. There wasn't that many chances either way, but after 20 minutes, Somerville was able to get the opening goal, and the game was tight from there. In fact, it was only in the 70th minute when the ball went to the net again, as Mortimer, a new player for Manchester United, found Joshua Zirkzee, who equalised. With extra time on the horizon, I was very worried with our old players probably not going to be able to cut it for another 30 minutes, but then Marshall picked up the ball, was tackled, Paqueta slotted home, and we managed to beat Manchester United and win a Europa League. It might not be the Champions League and the Prem that I was aiming for, but it just shows you can win a trophy with older players. In fact, it was very important because despite getting more points this year in 66, I'm not sure if we would have had European football. Maybe we would have done, but either way, we are now auto-qualified for the Champions League. The Carabao, we were unfortunately knocked out by Leicester in the semis. That could have been a win, but we finish in 8th place, 66 points, 12 losses and 20 wins. Still not really cutting away that issue of conceding too many goals. So I'll see what I can do there. I mean, you saw against Celtic how many we conceded, but let's not focus on the negatives. Right now, we are Europa League winners with West Ham, and it was Dumfries who was our best player this year, as well as Bowen, Kudus and Castrovilli, who comes in and scores 13 in his first season. Not a bad signing. Loftus-Cheek with 4, Paqueta with 14 and Watkins scoring 22. With 1 year left to go, we've now got a budget of 50 million quid, and if we want to push on for another trophy, I feel like a few more additions might just get us to that level, but I've got to get them right. In our 5th season, there's actually been a lot of movement. In fact, some of the players that left were ones I did not want to see go at all. Some I'm not so bothered about. Emerson has moved to Shabab Al Ali for free. Jack Butland also leaves to Rangers on a free. And Brozovic is going to finish his career at Salzburg. But we decided to move on Trossard for 200k to Hoffenheim. And Giovanni Simeone, now being outcompeted in that striker position, has moved to Nottingham Forest for 2 mil. But the one I didn't want to lose was Denzel Dumfries, our best player last season, and because of that, he attracted the interest of Al Hilal. They've came in and offered just a bit more than what we paid for him, and we had to accept, because with these older players, we can't really sign them to super long deals. So Dumfries, when we signed him, had a 2-year contract. Come the start of this window, it was down to 1, and he didn't want to stay. So that's the kind of situation we end up in. Age 32, he's getting a big contract, but at least he helped us to 1 trophy. Coming in though, I've got some great additions, with Marco Friedel being the first, a 30-year-old Austrian who we have signed from Werder Bremen, where he has been for years. The former Bayern man has been great in the Bundesliga, and for 8 mil is a no-brainer. Galeno has also joined us on a free from the Saudi Arabian leagues, which seems to be the method for us so far. He's left Al Ali and we've picked him up for absolutely nothing and get ourselves a very good quality winger. Speaking of quality for free, Calvin Phillips has signed for us, age 32. The England international has joined us after being let go by Man City as a free agent. I know he's not the player he once was, but he's still a nice addition and homegrown too. And our final free transfer was Rodrigo Bentancur, joining from Spurs. The 31-year-old Uruguayan still has quality. How Spurs have let him go, I don't know. But let's be honest, he's upgraded coming to West Ham, so you can't blame him. Lucas Petty has joined as a new goalkeeping option, age 30. He'll be just under Livakovic, and hopefully, as he gets older, Perry can take his minutes. He signs the Brazilian international from Arsenal for 40 million. He was originally at Lyon, then Arsenal bought him in only to not really use him, so we'll benefit from that. And then finally, we used pretty much all of Dumfries' money to get his replacement in the form of Julian Ryerson, who's a few years younger, age 30, a Norwegian international, signed for 30 million quid, and we net ourselves a very good fullback who can defend and attack. And as we go into our final year as West Ham manager in our over 30s team, we are left with a starting 11 of older players, all of which I'm very happy to have here. But of course, as much as they've got their pros in being mentally or resilient, they are weakening on the physical department, as you can see with a lot of these guys. But if we go ahead to the squad and we look at the ages, I think we've done exactly what we set out for. If you forget about some of these youth players that aren't really in the team, we've got 3 players under the age of 30, and then the rest of them are all 30 and older. Some of them are barely clinging on to a career, some are in their prime. It's a bit of a mix depending on the player. If you don't know NFM, it all comes down to natural fitness. The higher the natural fitness, the longer a player will play in their career before they start to deteriorate. But our team is here, they're ready to go, 1 year left. We've managed to max out pretty much all the facilities and recruitment statuses here at West Ham United. We are predicted to finish 9th financially because we haven't been spending. We've been doing pretty well, clearing off any debt and still with money in the bank. But here we go, our final season, we're ready to go. Can we win any more trophies? Will this rebuild be more of a success? Or will this challenge end up proving to be a little bit too difficult for me and leave us with an underwhelming finish? So in this last year, our experienced players had the chance to go out there, play Champions League football for the first time in this save, and hopefully develop as a team, and maybe even push on to challenge for a title. But didn't really go to plan. Now I will say we did manage to win the Super Cup, beating AC Milan 3-1 in the final and securing ourselves our first trophy of the season. But as with all domestic trophies so far in this save, we did not do very well. We got knocked out of the Carabao Cup in the 3rd round to Chelsea. The FA Cup we were knocked out by Arsenal in the quarters. And in the Champions League, despite smashing it in the league phase, getting great results like beating PSG 4-1, it was Napoli that knocked us out at the first opportunity in a knockout round. But in the league, there were signs of improvement. We were winning a lot more matches than we'd won before, and we got some great results. There was another 3-0 bashing of Man United, and we ended up beating Arsenal 3-1 too. But that didn't stop them finishing just ahead of us in the table in 2nd place, which might seem like we were close to winning it, but Newcastle out of nowhere ran away with 94 points. It was a much better season from us, 28 goal difference, only 9 losses this year, mainly to the big teams to be fair to us, and 5 draws. 24 wins was a lot more than before, 77 points, just above Man City, in a UCL spot again, but there won't be any fairy tale ending of 94 points. Now, on my most recent rebuild, I remember someone saying, this stinks of save scumming with Ajax or something like that in the comments, and I wish I did save scum. If I did, maybe I could come out of a rebuild like this and say, I won everything with an old team with West Ham. But no, if we are going to win the Premier League, it'll be with you guys carrying over the save over on Patreon. Remember, the save files will be over there for you to access if you want to. But let's take stock of what we've done here, because realistically, we have done great considering the circumstances. Our pool of players we were able to buy from was very limited, and we have built a stacked squad with Galeno, Bowen, Paqueta, Bentancur and Watkins all performing well. But just to show you what I'm working with, if I go to the scouted players range and we look at players that are willing to join us over the age of 30, I mean, there's 248 options, and the majority of them are either not for sale or just aren't that good. I mean, I could go out and buy Boyamaral if I wanted. He's one of the highest rated that we've got from our scout reports. Is he that great? I don't know. And there's this guy. Is he any better than what we've got? You see what I mean? The limited options that we have in the transfer market have really affected us. Meanwhile, if I get rid of this 30 range and we put it down to 15 or something, you can see all these great options that are available. 19-year-olds that are already better than the majority of our squad that I could go out and sign for 30 million quid. Like, it really hinders you not being able to buy wonder kids, not being able to buy new gens, or at least not until they're 30. So this was a real challenge. I enjoyed it, mind you. We've got West Ham into a great place as a club, regularly competing in Champions League and European football, with a nice set of kits as well, and of course, financially in a good position with this older squad. But let me know what you want to see next. What challenge would you like to see me attempt going forward? I'm trying to mix it up a little bit than just I rebuild X team. We're trying to add as many twists and stuff to it as we can, so let me know what you want to see. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.